Hello and welcome back to Bookish and welcome to Tag Tuesday. Today I'm doing the Jim Henson Tag, which was created by Gareth over at Books, Songs, and Other Magic. Just a great channel and a great tag, and like many people my age, I've definitely been affected by the work of Jim Henson. Okay, so Gareth created this tag, as I said, and he tagged me a while back, and I've been a little late in getting to it. I'm sorry about that, but I do think it's a good tag, and I do have a real fondness for Jim Henson. So here we go. Problem number one says, Sesame Street, name a book that taught you something. So I'm going to go with Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is a romance novel which is set kind of in modern times. A young woman with health problems and her super and romance ensues. And what this book taught me was that I could read romance and enjoy it, and I could stop being a snob, or maybe not stop being a snob, but stop thinking of romance as a genre that I couldn't possibly enjoy, because I really did enjoy that book. Problem number two, Muppet Show, name a book that has an unpredictable plot. I'm going to go with Shola by Toni Morrison. This is the story of a friendship between Shola and another young woman who grow up in a segregated black community in Ohio, and their relationship with one another, their relationship with their families, and all kinds of really unpredictable and strange things happening, from immolation to unintended, perhaps, murder to all kinds of affairs, and it's just a really unpredictable and in lots of ways one of Morrison's books I understood, I think, the least. I probably need to go back and read. Prompt number three, Muppet Show's newscaster. What book tackled a current political or social issue well? I'm actually going to go with three books here. The first is White Rage by Carol Alexander. Dr. Alexander in this book explores and kind of shows how current efforts by the Republican Party to limit access to voting to people of color are really part and parcel of the way in which each new achievement of greater equality and greater civil rights to African Americans has been met by a new wave of repression, a new wave of anger on the part of white people. I thought it was excellent. Also, The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander, which kind of explains how the prison industrial complex has kind of created a new form of repression and segregation of African American men primarily. And then The Sum of Us by Heather McGhee, which basically shows how racism and poverty and all these other things affect everybody. And that white people who have a tendency to see these as problems of perhaps the African American community, and therefore feel isolated from it, and therefore feel like they should vote in ways which put more restrictions on, or which they feel are protecting them, are actually harming themselves by creating an economic situation which harms everyone, not just perhaps the targets, or not targets intentional or unintentional, of that discrimination, of that poverty. Prompt 4, Dark Crystal, name a book that is an excellent example of world building. I'm going to go with N.K. Jemison's The Fifth Season, which is the first book in the Broken Earth trilogy, which I read and I thought were really good. To me, the first book is the strongest, and in part this has to do with the way in which N.K. Jemison builds this world in which her stories, all three of those novels, take place. There is no, there's not a lot of exposition, there's not a lot of explanation. You're thrown in to the story and you learn about things as you go along. You learn about different kinds of people, different kinds of powers, the situation that exists in the place where they live. It's just, which I think is called The Stillness now, if I remember. It's just brilliant in the way in which it creates world building, and I've been seeing elements of its influence in some of the books I've been reading, at least one of the books I've been reading this month. Prompt 5, Labyrinth, name a book with a great friendship in the story. I'm going to go with The Death of Vivek Oji. Vivek Oji by Kweke Meze. That novel deals with a young trans woman who lives in Nigeria and is struggling against family pressure and cultural pressure, and to be honest with you, just the out-and-out danger involved with being a trans woman in that society. And her friends, her female friends and relatives, really offer her an incredibly accepting, loving place where they help Vivek Oji kind of become comfortable with who they really are and express who they really are. And unfortunately, in the story, that has a tragic consequence. But I really found that friendship between women and a trans woman, or all women, in other words, to be really moving and powerful, and really kind of brings up to me, I think, kind of highlights part of the danger we see with the rejection of trans women by cis women, because in the book that's not what happens, and I thought it was really moving. Let's see, prompt 6, the storyteller. Name a book with great storytelling. I'm going to go with The Yield by Tara June Winch. It's a novel set in Australia, in part among the indigenous population of Australia. It tells the story of a young woman who goes back to Australia in this rural community, who is of indigenous origin, and gets back in contact with her grandmother and her aunts, and there's a family mystery involved. There's also the fact that her grandfather, who's just died, and that's why she's returned, had been working on essentially a dictionary of Aboriginal terms and words, and the storytelling is great because Winch is able to weave those two things together, the dictionary her grandfather's writing, which Winch puts in the book, and then the story weaves those together perfectly so that one gives meaning to the other, and there's kind of a revelation that takes place as a result of that. I just thought that was brilliantly done. Prompt 7, Farscape. Name a book that is wild, weird, and unpredictable. I'm going to go with Lot by Shola von Reinhold. This book was just a revelation, really enjoyable. It kind of has a dark academia feel to it. It kind of has a historical fiction feel to it. It has that kind of thing where you don't know what's real and what isn't. It reminded me a little bit in that respect of the work of W.G. Sebald, and I couldn't predict any of the things that happened. I don't think it was perfect, but I really did enjoy it. I really thought it was inventive, and hard to predict in lots of different ways. Prompt 8, dinosaurs. Name a book with a great monster in it. This was really hard for me because I don't read a lot of sci-fi or fantasy that has monsters in it, or haven't for quite some time, and I couldn't think of how to necessarily describe monsters that exist in N.K. Jemison's book. So I went in a different direction here. I'll take some license. I'm going to go with the hurricane as the monster. The hurricane in Their Eyes Were Watching God by Zora Neale Hurston. I'm going to make that the monster that I think is kind of a great monster, in that it kind of reveals a lot about humanity and racism and fight for survival and strength, and all those kind of things I think are revealed by the hurricane. Prompt 9, Never Ending Story. A book that's too long. I'm going to go with The Goldfinch by Donna Tart. I read The Goldfinch a long time ago, right when it came out. I think I have a hardback copy of it. I do have a hardback copy of it over there, and I enjoyed it, but the truth of the matter is that there is too much stuff going on in The Goldfinch for it to be completely comprehensible. It starts off with a story of a young man who is a part of a tragedy, a kind of a terrorist attack, and how he survives, and then how he survives and grows up, and all kinds of adventures. It takes him from, I don't know, New York to Las Vegas to Europe, and there's the Russian mob and a weird friend of his who he met in Vegas, and antiques furniture dealing and fraud. Anyway, there's a whole lot going on, and to me I felt like the book would have been stronger if Tart had eliminated some of those elements, and then the book would have also been shorter. So there's me telling Donna Tart how to write a book, but that's what the question asked me. Let's see, prompt 10, Fraggle Rock. Name a book with little creatures in it. Again, I had a really difficult time with this, but I'm going to go with The Plague of Doves by Louise Erdrich, because in The Plague of Doves, there literally is just swarm of doves, and a discussion and perhaps some kind of a metaphorical idea of people killing and capturing these doves for the purpose of eating them. So that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head with little creatures. Anyway, there you go. Thanks again to Gareth for tagging me and for creating this great tag. If you're a fan of the Muppets or any Jim Henson, please, this is me tagging you to do the tag. Anyway, I look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and thank you for watching.